Okay, those of you who end up skipping to exercise 11, you may have noticed that exercise 11 you can pass without doing anything. That doesn't mean you're finished, okay? So you actually have to go back to 10 and try to make sure it works, okay? The best thing is that you have check marks at 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, just like Samuel here, okay? If you've done part 1, that's great too. Okay, this is just good practice for you. You can get some feedback from the Code Academy online judge, right? Code Crunch or whatever you want to call it. Again, we have a few very talented gentlemen here today who are really willing to help out. If any of you are lost, you're not quite sure how to complete something, just raise your hand, and then these gentlemen will come and help you out. Okay, so I'm going to continue the lessons. We're going to go back. We're going to flip back to Learn Python. And we're going to go to the next hour. We're pretty much on time, actually. I was surprised. I didn't practice my talk. Okay, those of you who want to continue to pick Latin, by all means, please go ahead, work as a pair, as a partner, okay? Help yourselves out. You can listen in the background. I know you multitask anyways, right? You guys all post Facebook about how badly dressed your lecturers are, etc., while you're doing your listening. Okay? So we finished the first block, right? We finished up to loops. Okay, now we're going to go over functions. Okay, functions are, you know already, some way of saying there's a procedure that you want stored that you want to call maybe multiple times, right? And it's, as it says, dividing something into useful blocks. Our code word there is blocks, right? Blocks means what? I need a colon, right? And I need to indent. That's all it means, okay? I need to also indicate that it's a function and that I'm defining it. So Python is now going to ask us to use a little bit of syntax here, right? So you can see in this part of the window, you have to write the word def, right? Def means define, right? Not deaf, I cannot hear, right? So def, then I'm going to put the name of the function, okay? Then a colon at the end to say that I'm going to define what it is by giving you a code block of things that are associated with that function. Okay? That's what it says here, right? I need a block head and the rest of the block, right? Where a block line is more Python code or even another block, the block head has the following format, right? There's a keyword for the block, then the block name, then a set of arguments if it has any, and then an ending paren, right? So block keywords that you already know are actually things that you saw earlier, right? Loops, conditions, right? Functions are just another block. That's so simple, okay? So I just have a keyword in the front. I'm not going to say it's an if. I'm not going to say it's a for. I'm not going to say it's a while. I'm going to say it's a function, okay? So I have a def function, and now I'm going to give it an argument, a set of arguments, okay? So I have def my function, print hello from my function. You can guess what that does, okay, if you call that function. Functions can also receive arguments. That's obvious, right? So I can give input to arguments. Here they're not typed, okay? They're just passed in, and then we just assume, hopefully, that the username is something that's a string, and I'm going to put something else in here, okay? Functions may also return a value using the keyword return. So I can return a single value, I can return a tuple, a list, a hash, whatever I want, a single value. So once you've defined a function, that's a block of code, right? Then you need to do the obvious, right? You need to be able to call it, right? So to call it's very simple, right? I just do it without the function head, right? I just say, I have the function name, I'm calling it, I'm going to give it arguments or not, okay, on a run. Okay, my function prints a simple greeting, prints hello from my function. I need to indent that. And give it some arguments. Okay, and then I can change this back to the format that they want. I wish you a great year. I'm going to remove that. Give it that. And then give it the tuple name. Oops, the wrong syntax. Okay. So you can try more exercises. If you're done with the Code Academy 1, you can come back here and try the exercises for this, right? So if you reset the code on this page, this is the functions page. At the bottom, you have an exercise here. Right? In this exercise, you'll use an existing function while adding your own to create a fully functional program. Add a function named listBenefits that returns the following list of strings. Okay. Add a function named buildSentenceInfo, which receives a single argument containing a string and returns a sentence starting with the given string and ending with the string is the benefits of functions, right? Run and see all the functions work together, right? Okay, so I can list benefits. I'm going to change that to return a list of strings, right? So I'm going to just do that, right? A list is square brackets, and then I'm going to put some strings in here. Right, whatever they are. Okay, and fill in this one here. Right, add a function named buildSentenceInfo, which receives one argument containing a string and returns a sentence starting with the given string and ending with the string is a benefit of functions, right? So I can do that. Return a string that is the benefit is a benefit of functions, right? And then I'm just going to run it, right? If I name the benefits of functions, list of benefits, and then you can see the Python way of doing the for operator, right? For all the things that are in the list of benefits, give it a name, and then call the function with that. Okay. You should get the expected output something like this. Okay, we're ready for, I think, no we're not, hold on. 1 second here. I think I skipped one. Okay, that's next. So in Java and C++, you have learned classes and objects. So I think you know what they are, right? A class is also some type of block, right? So that's exactly what we're going to use. We're just not going to use the def keyword in the front. We're just going to use the word class, right? And then everything indented one, this is a big code block, which itself has code blocks in it, right? Because in a class, I can define functions, I can find the data members, etc. Okay? And I'm just going to do that, right? I'm going to have a class. Everything indented here, 4 spaces, is part of that class, right? Until I outdent to the parent outdent, right? So I have a variable called blah, and I have a function called that is called function. It takes one argument called self, and then prints a statement. Okay. Okay, now just like you have in Java and C, you have both class members and instance member variables, right? So when you access an object variable, you have to give it the dot notation. You want to access a class's function, you have to give it a dot notation, the function name, and the arguments, right? So if it doesn't have any arguments, you need to give the parentheses. If it has arguments, you put them within the parentheses. Okay? Just like in any other object-oriented language, you can create multiple objects that are of the same class. Okay? Each object contains an independent copy of the variables that are defined in the class. Okay, so if I have 2 variables, this one and this one, from 2 different objects, they might get 2 different values. So we can try to do this. We have a class defined for vehicles, which we have down here. Create 2 new vehicles called Car1 and Car2. Set Car1 to be a red convertible worth $60,000. I think this is probably $600,000 in Singapore, right? And car 2 to be a blue van worth about maybe $100,000 here in Singapore. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Okay, the other very important data structure I told you earlier was that you have to deal with lists, and the other one is a dictionary, okay, or hash table, as you know them from data structures, right? So a hash table is very simple, right? It's just a collection of attribute value pairs, right? So the attribute is the key, the value is the value, right? And it's written in Python like this, all right? So here's an example of one, okay? It's a variable that has curly braces. Okay, so we've used pretty much all of the different brackets, right? We have square brackets for lists. We have parentheses for tuples, right? We have curly brackets for associative arrays, hashes, okay, or dictionaries, right? To separate the key from the value, you need to use a colon, okay? And you separate multiple key and value pairs with a comma, okay? So here you go. You could store it like this, you could initialize it like this, or you could do it like this. You can say, I have an empty, okay, I have an empty hash table called phone book. I'm going to stick in one key, all right? Here I'm going to use the list notation, okay, I'm going to give it square brackets, and then John, meaning the object that I'm going to put in. So the object that I'm putting in is a string, right? Okay, and then I'm giving it a number. This happens to be an integer, right? Okay, I have another phone book entry. It's going to take another object, which also happens to be a string, and I'm going to associate it with another number. Okay, now when you iterate over a dictionary, which is very, very common to do when you're dealing with databases, which I'm sure all of you will touch, okay? When you do it in Python, you're going to use something like this, okay? You need to keep two pieces of information every time you go through, which is a key and a value, right? So for example, here in the phone book, you have a key, which is the name, right? This one here, and you have a value, which is the number. Right? So I do that by using a for statement, and I just give two arguments, right? Name, comma, phone number, meaning that I expect two pieces of information to come back every time I run an iteration. Okay? And I say use the word in, right? In, you saw earlier, just means it's, something within a collection, right? So I'm going through the collection and I'm retrieving one tuple at a time, right? One value pair at a time. And assigning the pair, the attribute to the first argument and the value to the second. Okay, and I do that because each hash table has a function called iterItems, which doesn't need any arguments, that returns two pieces of information every time it returns. Okay, so I'm going to print phone number of string, right? This one here is integer. Right? And this is the same format string one that you saw earlier. So obviously that's not going to work because I don't have any phone book, so I'm going to put one in here. Okay? You can remove a value by calling the notation delete phone book. Okay? This is not that good looking from an object-oriented point of view. So you can also write it like this: phone book, the object, and then call the function pop, then it'll remove it from the dictionary. We're going to add Jake. And add him with the number that's there. And remove Jill, right? Okay? All right, we're ready for our next Code Academy exercise. Okay, so if you haven't done all of it, don't worry. You can do it again. I hope more of you have filtered in with more. You can see a couple more teams have done it. Okay. Yeah, when you're putting in a screenshot, you have to insert an image. If you inserted a file, it comes out like this, where you have to click it. So I made that mistake many times before I figured it out. Sorry about that. Just to let you know. So good, I can see more of you are doing that. Wow, a lot of you, great. Wow, a whole lot of you. Great. Don't worry, if you've not finished, again, this is a course, you take it at your own speed, all right? Okay, we are going to do another exercise, so I want you to go back up to Python, so that means click up here. Yeah, the Python, the Code Academy interface just changed last month, so it's a little bit annoying. But we're going to scroll down a little bit. We're going to come to this one, a day at a supermarket. Okay, and again, just like before, there's three sets of exercises, okay? There's some practice with dictionaries and lists. Okay, getting store, and then the shopping trip. So I want you to do these 4 exercises, okay? Shopping at the market, making a purchase, stocking out, and let's check out, okay? And for this one, we are also going to do another programming contest, right? Why not? Okay, so you do the same thing. You take a screenshot, you post it here. When you finished it, your screenshot should look a little bit like this, right? I have check marks 1, 2, and 3, and I finished this one. The last one is again just like the first one. It doesn't have any content in it. Okay. So the first step is very easy. Again, it says first make a list of groceries with the values banana, apple, and orange on it. That looks pretty good to me. Ta-da! So I finished 1 out of the 3, okay? Making a purchase. Good, now you need to know how much you're paying for all of the items. So I have a list, a dictionary, and another dictionary. And I want you to write in this example here, follow the instruction part, the part in blue, right? It says write your code here. Define a function, compute bill. Well, the prototype is here. It takes 1 argument, a list of food, right? In the function, initialize a variable of total of 0. That looks like it's done. For each item in the food, add the price of that item to total. Okay, it's okay. And finally, return the total. Okay. Note that your function should work for any food list, not some specific food list. So you shouldn't just calculate the total for 1 banana, 1 orange, and 1 apple. Okay? You can do that. Okay. Okay. So you can do the rest of these here. I'm going to go back to the first set and do them because I didn't do these before. Okay? So as you finish them, again, go to Piazza and then write down here what you are managed to do. So this will be open to anyone who's aiming just for Project Gemini. If you're doing Vostok anyways, you want to try it, go ahead, please. Please go ahead and do the exercises, irrespective of what level you're in. Okay? Go ahead and post. But we want to have prizes for each level. And again, we have several amazing gentlemen here who are walking around with their coffee in hand. They're buzzing with caffeine. Please help them out by giving them some work to do. If you finish the exercise, go ahead and do the first part of the exercise, right? There's exercises 1 through 13. For the competition, we only need you to do 10 through 13. Hey, Lynn and Bjorn, if you have a screenshot, you can verify that. Otherwise, it looks like Jen Feng and Edward. Can we have not Lynn identify herself? Okay. And another one, check Jen Feng. Where's Jen Feng? Over there? Great. Ah, okay. It just warped in. Wow. Yeah, they're first. Are you aiming for? Oh, you don't know, right? So you're going for a project Apollo. They're okay. Jen Fang is over there. Did they finish the exercise? Yes? Okay, can you check? Can you run their code to make sure it works for stalking out exercise 12? Oh, good. Okay, we have our second winner for today. So maybe you can tell us whether you were working alone or with a partner together, pair programming. That was Jen Feng and Edward. Yes, meaning working individually? No, okay, you need two. We only have one laptop protector left. This means those of you who are aiming for Apollo 11, like these two gentlemen here, will have to share one. But we have some other things to give you, and we'll make it up for you later, all right? Again, it's the sense of achievement, not the freebies that you get, right? Yeah. Yeah, consolation prize. Okay, so all of you, please continue to do the exercises. All right, if you finish the exercise, go back and do the rest of the exercises in this day at the supermarket. It's good practice. You know, you have an online coach that is fairly responsive to you, does syntax highlighting, all these nice things. You might as well use it. Okay, if you're still on the other one, no worries. Just keep on posting. Keep at it. Here, I'm going to do some of these because it's more fun than lecturing. We'll move on in another 3 or 4 minutes. Okay. If you get 1 or 2 exercises done in a section, that's pretty good. You guys are quite up to speed. It takes a while to learn a new language, but Python, I think you'll find, is pretty refreshing. It doesn't have a lot to it. It sort of actually makes sense for a change. Okay, all that sense is going to go out the window once you learn a Google App Engine. App Engine is pretty cryptic. But enjoy it for the next day and a half. Now I know all of you are used to multitasking. Let's give your computer something to multitask. If you haven't already installed Python, we can do it now. Okay, so I have 3 sets of instructions, but they're basically the same. All right. You can do this in another window or in your browser. You can just go to type Python 276 into your Google or whatever search engine you use. Okay, and then you're going to be delivered to a website a little bit like this one. This is the one for Windows. Okay, python.org, FTP, Python 2.76. And then in this directory, there is an MSI, a Microsoft installer. Okay, you can download it and run it. It will install Python to your local C drive, assuming that you have space. I know a lot of us are running out of space on their laptop. It's a perennial problem. Okay, now just to emphasize, Google App Engine does not like Python 3.0 or whatever. Okay, so even though Python 3 is still very much in use, you should still install, for the sake of this tutorial and tomorrow Wednesday's tutorial, Python 2.7. Okay, now those of you who are trying to do Apollo 11 or Project Gemini, you may want to consider installing a virtual installation of Python. Okay, what I mean by that is there's a nice system for keeping track of multiple Python installations. I don't recommend this for people who just want to do the basic course. Okay, but if you want to go ahead and try something a little bit harder, you want to keep your machine a bit more clean, you want to experiment with different Python versions, you can try doing something called virtual env. Okay, you won't know what most of this means unless you're a hacker. Okay, and if you have time, those of you aiming for the higher levels of achievement, you can look at the virtual env page, try to figure out how to install it. What it will let you do is keep multiple versions of Python and multiple sets of libraries on your system. So you can have both Python 3 and Python 2.7 with different libraries. Okay, with a lot of different scripting languages. For example, Ruby, Python, Perl, they all have these package managers that allow you to install libraries. And if you don't know that ahead of time, you probably just install one. Okay, so if you're aiming for these higher level of achievements, I would urge you to install virtual env so you can separate out things. You can actually have multiple versions of Python, multiple libraries all together. So that's for those of you aiming for higher. For Vostok level, it's completely okay. Tune out to what I just said, and we'll just go on. Okay? Okay, so this is the Windows installation. It's the most straightforward one. You just click, install, done, right? If you're running on a Mac, you actually already have Python installed, right? The problem is it may not be the most up-to-date one. Well, you can check, all right? You can open this very nasty utility that most humanities scholars really hate to see. It's called the terminal window. Where is it anyways? Right, there it is. Wow, what's that? Ugh. All right, and I'm going to type Python, or try to, and type version. Okay, if you get back something that says 2.7 point something, you're good. All right, if you get back 2.6 something, you might want to consider upgrading. Upgrading, you can do it a number of different ways. Just like most Unix systems, there are about 5,000 different ways to upgrade things, and then another 50,000 ways to break it. So you have to be a little bit careful. Okay. If you're much more of a hacker person, you might be running Linux. Okay, if you're using Ubuntu, you probably have 2.6 installed. If you want to install 2.7, you can do the normal thing. Go to the same website. You can uninstall the tar B2 zip version. Okay, unzip it and run configure. I think anyone running Linux probably knows what this does, right? It checks for how you're going to do things properly. Okay. So you have to type make after you did it. You have to have super user privileges. That's why you type sudo. You type make install so it goes into the proper directories. Bang, you're done. Okay. So I'll post these two free slides later, but they're not that important right now. Okay. So while this is downloading or installing, configuring, whatever, continue your Code Academy exercises. Okay, we just did most of the tutorial. How are we doing here? We got a couple more. All right. Very good. I see some new names. That's good. And some old names too. That's great. All right. Let's go on. On. If I can find my tab. Ah, great. Good job. I did that. Okay, there are a couple other things that I want to cover. One really nifty thing about Python that you're going to love after a while, it's not going to sink in today, all right, is list comprehensions. Okay? It's a really simple concept. You take a list, you get out another list, all right? But the way you do it is by giving some permutation of the list that gives it. All right, so for example, let's read this code here. The quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. That's a sentence. Okay, I have a variable called words. It's going to take this string called sentence, call a member function called split. Okay, the split doesn't take any arguments here. So what it's going to do is split on white space, which are all, the spaces here. Okay, like between the quick and the brown, okay, and then return an array. Can you read that? Yeah, it's going to return an array, okay, and then I'm going to stick, so words is going to have all of the individual words in order as an array, as a list, sorry, and then I'm going to create an empty list called word lengths, and I want to calculate all the word lengths of each of the words, right? So I can do that by doing something like this, right? For word in words, right? If word doesn't equal the, then I'm going to do this, append the word lengths to that, because I want to say only if the word is not equal to the word the. I'm going to do all of that. Okay? Now, using list comprehension, that's a lot easier to write. Okay, let's print this out so you can see what it looks like. Print word links. Right? So here is quick brown fox jumps over lazy dog, right? Quick brown fox jumps over lazy dog, right? We took out the two does. All right? Now if I want to use it doing list comprehension, I can write it in 3 lines, right? Basically what I'm saying is I want to generate a new list called word lengths, right? But I want to do it by running some code. I'm going to say make a list item for me that's the length of some variable called word, okay? For word in words, right? For all of the words that are in the word list, this list that I've supplied, but only if the word is not equal to the. Yeah, that looks pretty nasty, right? Okay, we're going to ignore this part for now, all right? That's a condition. It's a filter of sorts, okay? But this part means a lot of sense, right? It says, go in this for loop, right? Because that's what the second part is doing. For word in words, that's a for loop, okay? And all I'm doing is saying, with that word, what do I want to do? I want to calculate the length of the word, right? That's going to be the thing that I'm returning, okay? But I'm going to put it in a list, right? That's why I have it in these square brackets outside, a list, okay? In Python, you can also use the if operator after an expression. So here, your if operator is acting as a filter if the word does not equal the. Okay, you could substitute it with something else. Okay? So you would get the same thing here, right? Print word lengths, and hopefully you'll get the same output. Okay, so you can do this using a list comprehension. Create a new list called out of the list of numbers, which contain only the positive numbers as a list of integers. So we can try to do that. So here's, if you press reset again, you get the exercise that they want you to do, right? So how do you do that? You have to fill in some list comprehension here, right? Right there. Think about it for a while. Try it out. See what you can get your list comprehension to work. There are a number of languages that have these types of list comprehensions. They're very handy. There's another function, I think, in Java called map that does something very similar to that. Okay? Okay, now we're going to go back to Code Academy. But we're not doing a programming contest. Did I have you fooled? We're going to learn about input and output. And for that, we need to go back up. Go to the very, very last exercise, file input and output. It's actually not hard, but they put it at the end. Okay. Many times when you're dealing with programs, you need to input and output functions, files, right? For example, submitting to an online judge or other things like that. Okay. But in other contexts, you need to create files for sending out. For example, if you're going to make a web application that sends emails, you probably want to write an email and then have the mailer send it out for you. Okay. You can do that as well. Okay, so the syntax looks very similar to Java. You've probably seen it before, right? It's modeled after C as well, right? So you have a file name and then a file descriptor, right? Whether you want to read or write or something to it. Okay. So in Code Academy, you can see the script that you're writing in the tab up at the top here. Okay, but you can also see the output file that's generated if you have another one here. By clicking on that tab. So there's nothing there yet. Okay? So now if I click on the output.txt, you can see it's been filled in with whatever the script output is like. Okay, so if you don't remember the open function, there's nothing to worry about. Okay, again, you need to write a cryptic line that looks like this one here, right? You have a file descriptor variable f. It gets assigned to something that's the return of the open function. The open function takes a file name and a file descriptor, and this says, I want to write to this file, okay, and then send it to the data, right? So you can do that. Create a variable called myFile, set it equal to calling open on a file called output.txt, and pass it the r plus function, file descriptor. Okay? So it will allow you to read and write. Okay? So what I want you to do now is do the last devils in the details. These are the last part of the introduction to Python in Code Academy. Okay? So I don't have an exercise for this one, but I'm going to put it up anyways. This is not for a prize, but it's good to do. So I think all of you are familiar with file I/O because you've had to do online judge and other things, code crunch, so you should be pretty familiar with opening and closing files. So hopefully that's not too hard for you. If not, no worries. You can practice until your heart's content on Code Academy. So these are pretty easy exercises, I think. So for those of you aiming for a higher level of achievement, I say something a little bit harder for you, a little bit more meaningful. It's going to take a bit more time to do, maybe about 20 minutes if you're fast. Actually less than that. Okay? It took me an hour because I'm not very good at programming myself. But I'd like to step through it, but we're going to wait a couple minutes so that we have at least, let's say, 5 or 6 people, teams that have done that. So please do practice. You know, if you have more time on your hands, you can look at some of the other exercises. There's another set of exercises on list comprehension that are really nice, but I'm skipping. If you want to do those, you can go back to those. Those are quite good. Let's see, where is it? So this is a really long section, but I really encourage you, if you want to get more mastery out of Python, do the set in this section. This teaches you what differentiates Python from the other languages. For the most part, I've taught you things that you already know, right? You know all these paradigms in other languages, so it's not hard to translate them to Python, right? It probably would have been easier to start with Python and translate it back to C or Java or something else. But you learned it the hard way first, which makes teaching Python pretty easy. Okay, so you can try iterations. These are very useful. We've already done all of these. List comprehensions. List slicing is really, really nice. I have to say I really like this. If you took 101S, you probably know lambda functions. It has lambdas too. Okay, very nice. And you can do passes and yields. That's also a very nice thing that you have in Ruby and also in Python, but not in a lot of other languages. Imperative languages, sorry. Save your classmates from boredom, you know, finish the exercise. If I get 5 people finishing, we'll move on to the last part. So when you do your screenshot, show this part, okay? Because when you do this, it's hard for me to say that you actually finished it. It looks like you may have just skipped to the last one and run it. So again, I want to emphasize, all of you who didn't finish the exercise, don't worry. This course is self-paced, self-taught. If you have any difficulties, raise them on the Piazza forum. You already see that some of your classmates have already finished it. They will be able to pitch in and help you out. Okay? It's really important that we act together as a cohort. The more advanced people can come back and help everyone else pedal along, you know, so that we can all reach the same level. Oh, that's a big screenshot. Okay, let's go on to the last part. Okay, now you may have heard about GitHub. Yeah, I'll just stay quiet until you guys simmer down a bit. Yeah, I'd like to start when you guys are ready. Okay, thank you for being quiet. So, you may not know this gentleman, but he is the creator of Python. Okay, he actually hasn't done much open source coding, but of course his language is open source and he's contributed to many. Okay, so Zan is going to talk about Git tomorrow, and one of the things that you're going to do throughout Orbital, especially if you're in Apollo 11, is use Git. And one of the things you can do with Git is to make your code public, you know, contribute back to the community. And one of the ways you can do that is through GitHub. So sorry, it's getting a little bit noisy again, so I'm not going to talk. Okay, so you're going to be able to learn how to use GitHub. It's just going to function like a normal Git repository. But one really nice thing about this is it exposes some of the statistics that you can use as a web application. So there's this really funny site called the Open Source Report Card, and what it does is it takes somebody's username. So let's enter his on GitHub. So here's G. Van Rossum. Okay, and it'll generate a report from statistical data that they have from GitHub. So they'll say, it's a top-notch Pythonista. Well, that's not surprising. He invented the language. Who spends a lot of time commenting on issues between pushes. That means commenting about what other people have done on the code. He's an early week worker who works best in the afternoon around 3 p.m. Okay, and his activity is very similar to other people. He should be friends with someone. He actually knows these people because they push to it. And some statistics, right? We love stats, okay? So you can see when he works, right? What time he works, okay? All of this is based on free data that's in your GitHub profile. So actually, after a while, you can go back to this page, type in your own GitHub ID, and then find out what you're like, okay? So he contributes mostly, no surprise, to Python and a little bit to CSS. Okay, now the very important thing about this exercise is that you can get all of this data programmatically, okay? Meaning that you can crunch it yourself in your own Python programs. Okay, now you've heard of XML, right? Anywhere who has not heard of XML before? Anyone who's not heard of XML? Right? If you have not heard of XML, you're probably under a rock for the last 10 years. Okay? But if you have, there's another notation called JSON. Does everyone know JSON? Not the person, okay? Okay? JSON is in this one here, JSON, right? This one here. JavaScript Object Notation, right? It's just an acronym, okay? What it is another way of packaging data, okay? This is the same page written in JSON, okay? That's just the data, okay? What is JSON though? JSON is just a set of associative arrays. What's that? A hash table. Do we know hash tables in Python? Sure, they're called dictionaries, right? Okay, so actually it's very nice. Python provides a way for us to easily ingest JSON data, okay, and use it in our programs, okay? Now, for a lot of APIs out there, okay, so let's go back to Code Academy, for example. Blah, 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 blah. Out, 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 out. How do I go out? No. Okay, for a lot of different APIs out there, you've heard of APIs, right? Application Programming Interfaces. What does that mean? It means other sites making data available for you to use in your programs for free or for a fee. Okay, so for example, you can get information from YouTube, you can access Twitter data, you can get things from Evernote, you can get sound information on tracks from SoundCloud, you can save and open things on SkyDrive, you can get text, audio from NPR, you can save and share links in Bitly. All of these services are APIs, meaning that you can use them programmatically in your programs if you use their API. Okay, an API is like a contract. It's just telling you what you have to provide and what it's going to give you back. Okay, the only problem with using an API today is that most of these services that you need here, you need to give an API key, meaning you have to sign up with them and say, oh, I'm developing an application. Okay, please register me. Send me some key that will unlock your service for me to use. Okay, we're not going to do that today. We don't have time. Okay, we're just going to use this one. All right, that is good data, right? Right. If you type it, yeah, I don't think you can read this here. Really sorry. osrc.dfm.io and then type the name of a GitHub user. It will give you this nice page. But like a lot of other JSON-oriented things, if you remove it and type JSON, okay, then it will give you the JSON version. Sometimes, if you are lucky, if you type XML, it will give you an XML version. I don't think they do that, okay, because it thinks it's a person's name, okay? So you can look up anyone. So for example, you can look up Lee Sun, right? This is his profile, and if you want to know when he works, according to open source report card, he says he's also a noteworthy Pythonista. Yeah. Okay, who loves to push code, meaning commit code to the repository on Tuesdays, early in the morning, right? I don't work early. Maybe he does. Okay? And he knows something. Okay, we can type in other people that you know. I think Zahan also has a handle. What's your handle? Like that? AN. Let's see what he says about him. Ah, champion JavaScripter. Wow. Who works late best at night, right? All college students work late best at night, right? Okay. He knows a lot of people. Obvious connection with these people who also commit to the same repositories. Yes? Yes? Okay. And you can see when he's usually up. Yeah. Okay. Supposedly. Okay. I don't think it's quite accurate because it depends on what time zone you put your GitHub profile to. Okay? But you can see it's pretty active, 398 events, and all of these things. Okay? So quite nice, right? Okay, so all of this information about Zahan is available in JSON format. And what I want you to do as part of your very, very last Apollo 11 graduation from Python exercise, if you can finish, it's no worries if you can't, is do the following exercise. Close these off. Oh, there it is. Ah, open source report card. Who works when? Let me make this public so that all of you can see it first. Okay. Okay. So it's not a Coded Academy exercise. Okay. Just take a screenshot of your code's output and put it here. Okay. Write your name and your partners, etc., and some ridiculous comment tagline if you care to show some pizzazz. Okay. So here's what you have to do. For the partial list of GitHub users in the staff of Orbital. Okay. I did this late at night. I missed many of you. I'm sorry if you're here and I didn't get your GitHub ID. So Wei San, myself, Wang Gaoshang, I think this is Yos, Franklin, Ming Yang, and Mohammed Munir. Okay, these are the ones that I could verify. Okay, what I want you to do is fetch their JSON version of the open source report card page. Keep the track of the number of push actions that they do. Okay, then for each day of the week and each hour of the day, list the top staff, breaking ties in alphabetical order of their GitHub name, that do code pushes for the relevant time unit. Oh, that sounds tough. Wow, how do I do that? Okay, so the first part is pretty easy. Okay, fetch the JSON version of the open source report card page. I actually am not going to show you how to do that. I want you to learn how to do that by using Google. Okay, search on Google, find out how to do that. All right. It's not hard, right? You can just cut and paste JSON and then type Python example or something like that. Find out how to do it, and if you've installed it on your system, then you can run it. Okay? If you haven't installed it, you can use another site. I don't know whether it works or not for outside Python. Outside cases where you have to go through an API, but there's this nice online cloud IDE called Python Fiddle. You can also try typing in your code here, okay, and then saying what you want to import, like URL lib2 or something, and see whether that works. Okay, and you can run the code and see whether that works. Okay. But if you've installed Python, you can try it on your own. You can use your own, whatever editor you would use, a Vim or Emacs. I think I'm probably the only one in the room who uses Emacs. Okay. Or if you like, you can also install a nice IDE on Piazza. I had a post about PyCharm. So this is very nice for those of you who are considering doing Vostok. Why? Because this connects Google App Engine directly into your IDE. You don't have to do very much. Okay, once you configured it properly, it's really easy to use. Okay, so all you have to do is download the software and then provide some license information that I've included here, and then you have it for the whole year. Okay, it's free of charge. Normally, I don't know how much they charge it, $30 or something. Okay, so you need to paste this license in, and then you can use it for Orbital until actually next year around the same time it expires. Okay. If you don't want to do that, I think a lot of people like Sublime Text. Right, Sublime Text Free is out, but I think most people are still using 2. So you can download 2. That's a really nice piece of software. I used to use TextMate, but that's only for OS X users. Okay, so this is a really nice one that's portable through all different operating systems that most people are going to run here. I don't think anyone is probably using anything else besides these 3. Okay, so I'll bring up the specifications at the end here of what you have to do. What was it? Okay, so that's the end of the course that I have for you today. I will help you over the next couple of 10 to 20 minutes construct a solution for this. Okay, but if you want to take a break, feel free to do so. Get a snack, get some sunshine instead of the nice artificial radiance in this room. Okay, then come back. We have a really, really nice talk from a really, really nice guy, Winston Hill. He'll be here at 6 o'clock to tell you about Agile, and I'll close out our things for today. Okay? So if you want to work on this exercise, please do. It is a good exercise, I think, because I wrote it myself. Okay? So give it a shot.
Are we having a prize?
Yeah. So for Apollo 11, anybody who's looking for Apollo 11, we do have a prize for the first team that's going to complete this exercise. I need to compare your screenshot with what I have. So we're going to give away the last protector and two notepads.
Water bottle.
And an extra water bottle, I guess. Things like that. So you'll see something like this, okay? You might see a post that looks like this, that's targeted a blue square. So this person is the name of the person who's in charge of it. So this counts as an extractor account, so everyone can see here. But you only see one. Yeah.
Is it necessary for us to use Google Apps because what if I create an app simply using the Android? Android.
Yes. It's just that we have in this course
Okay, so like Android would be much more difficult than Python.
It's much more. It's also probably maybe this one.
Because like if you make an app using Google Apps Engine, like would it actually be like you won't be able to launch it? Can we launch it like and other people download it from?
So okay, mobile. So the things that we're talking about happening web applications, like websites. So you're thinking about a mobile app like say something like
That cannot be done using Google Apps.
not easy. There is something called endpoint that allows you to do that. That's easy. Okay. You can make something sort of like an app, which is make a website responsive. That means it looks good on a mobile mode than actually a website. So, for example, there are lots of websites that you visit them with a mobile version, right? And they look like the Chrome app. Just that you have to find it in Mario.
For a person who doesn't know how to make mobile apps, would it be very difficult to make it over 15 months?
It depends on your dedication.
Actually, like I can't do more than 2 hours a day.
Okay. So yeah, it depends on your dedication and how fast you can try it. The Android examples and frameworks are here. So you follow those, and if you find that after a week or so you're able to go on material and you're ready to go on, give it a shot and do something like that.
I see some people may be leaving. I hope you stay because you guys haven't learned software engineering yet. Okay, so Winston's going to tell you about agile methodology, which is one of the methodology for doing software engineering. So it's useful for you. It's roughly what we are following. Like we can't follow the full methodology, but you would try to do a modified version for Orbital. So it's good that you stay and listen to how people do agile, and you will learn about it in your software engineering course, like next year. And you will learn other methodologies as well. But most of you haven't done any software engineering course, so it's good for you to stay. It will help you to sort of figure out what to do through the holidays for Orbital. Okay, so and he's a good speaker. So I know it's getting late. We have had a long day, but I'll try to stay for the last 1 hour.
So there are a lot of different technologies that come to websites they are projects you can program in them. You want to work on those technologies, you can just programming aspects instead of just like work publishing on so learning.
I can't help. I'm not very registering.
But if you want to modify how websites work or modify how to great. Should that help? Okay. You already confirmed the video, which is still in the video. A level of skill is up to you. Help us allocate research. But your partner is will be putting up the note data if you decide to submit by the end of tomorrow. You can decide put some notes. But if you don't know, you should put like you think you're not going to work that hard. Yeah.
It's possible. Let me check.
What's your name?
My name.
Mm-hmm.
YONG. PAL.
This is, yeah, we don't have your registration at all. We have your partner's registration. Is that your partner's name?
Yes.
Yeah, but we don't have your registration. Did you fill out the Google form?
Google form.
Yeah.
Is it from the post again? Or is it?
There is a Google form that you have to fill out to register. Let's see whether I can find it. If you haven't done it yet, you should do it as soon as possible. Yeah, it's this one here. Have you filled out this form before? If it seems that you haven't because we don't have your registration.
Then I do it.
Yeah, you can do it on your computer. You can go to this address, okay? bit.ly/1d6z.
Just go to this website.
Yeah, that's right.
So after I finish writing,
Yeah, you do need to inform me so that I can put you in. Okay. You get any people finishing?
one day actually it's good we have a break tomorrow. for the students as well. Wow. Okay.
Okay. So it looks like you got it right. That's what I had too. That's something very similar, right? Yeah. Okay. So Huang Ye and Tang Jiahui, are you here? Congratulations, you've won the Apollo 11 contest.
You want a water bottle? Extra water bottle?
Extra water bottle?
Or I don't know, or something else whenever we get something else. Water bottle. Or you want, I don't know, sometimes you get something else. Okay.
Let's have a round of applause for this lady and gentlemen. Okay, so your code for the final one should look a little bit like output like that. Mine looks a little bit different because I didn't really specify what the output should look like. Mine looks like this. Okay. You can see this gentleman who is just Yoss, he's sitting somewhere in this room or standing up, has done a lot of coding. You can see your instructors don't do a lot of coding. Wee Sun is the only one who's coded the maximum amount, 2 hours, 2 push events at 4 o'clock in the morning, apparently. I'm not even on the chart, which means I've been sleeping and getting some good health. Okay, but I encourage you to try to do this exercise. It's not actually very long at all. If you look at the count of lines that I have here, it's only 40 lines. It's quite short. Okay, and that's because I'm using not very good Python syntax. If you do nice Python syntax, it's even shorter. So one of the things I want you to understand as part of these exercises is that looking around on the web is going to be very, very, very important to solving your problems. Okay? So for this problem specification, you have to do some Googling. Okay? And you're going to find that these sites, especially one called Stack Overflow, is a really good source of information. So for example, I told you that you could get information in JSON format. So I typed the words to find this, right? I said JSON Python example. Okay, and then you can find some of these posts here, and then eventually maybe you'll find this particular example. Okay, it says I'm trying to get a URL using Python and the response is in JSON. However, when I run something like this, it doesn't come back right. So what you should do is do something like this. Okay, now, you know in NUS, we are very strict about plagiarism, right? You're not allowed to plagiarize code. This is the exception to the rule. We want you to plagiarize as much as possible in this course, okay? We call it code reuse, okay? Yes, code reuse, all right? You can do it just for this course, okay? All right, what we mean is that you should go out on the web and use all the benefits of what everyone else has done, okay? Now, I think a lot of us, you know, we are a little bit embarrassed when we don't know the solution to something that's sort of obvious, okay? But that doesn't stop many millions of other people for asking that question for us, right? So for example, in order to get data in Python from a URL into JSON format, somebody wrote a question. Now, how do I do that? I have this code that doesn't work. Okay? They asked December 17th, and you know, 34 people upvoted this answer. There were other answers. They were answered all over the different time periods. Okay, this one was actually answered on the same day. Okay, answered, wow, on this 1 minute later. Okay, so you need help, ask. All right, there's no other better solution than that. Okay, if you ask stupid questions, other people will find answers to those questions that you found were, you know, pretty simple. Okay, that's good. All right, you're helping to build a community of solutions to hard technical questions or even easy technical questions, right? Okay, so I encourage all of you, use Piazza, use Stack Overflow, use whatever you want, post on it, okay? Don't be just a lurker who just consumes answers from Google and Stack Overflow or whatever, all right? Dare to post, all right? Dare to make yourself known, dare to communicate to others and thank them when they help, okay? You can say, some of these people here are asking follow-up questions, etc. Okay, so actually what you needed to do is type something like this into your system. Okay, so let's. I'm going to write this again. Okay, so I have a API. I'm calling the URL open function. I have to give it a URL. So maybe I'm going to start with a simple case, all right, which is the one that I showed you over here. Okay, I have to fetch something like this. Oops. Okay, and then I can print the data. Okay, and I get this nice mess. Okay, it's not nicely formatted. Sorry, let me make that bigger. You guys are probably going blind. Okay, but I can make that. It's not as nicely formatted to the version that I showed you on the web page, but basically that's the exact data there. Now I just have to pull out fields, right? So you'll notice that the beginning of this is a curly bracket. That means it's a hash, right? So I can do the normal things that I would do with a hash, right? I can say instead of printing the data, I want to do something with that hash. You know, what can you do with a hash? Well, I can iterate through it, right? And say for x key in data, for example, print key. All right, maybe that will be okay. All right, then I can start to see some of the structure. These are the keys that were returned in the JSON associative array. So, you know, maybe I want to know something about the usage, right? Because that was the field that has all of this data, the numeric data, right? So I'm going to do something with the usage, right? Let's print the data in usage, right? And then I can see some of the data in there, right? Right, so I can see some that it's also a hash, right? So I can go through the keys in that hash. For key in there, okay, print key. Right, and I can go on, like there's another thing down in here, events, that's the data structure I want, right? Well, it's just iterative. You keep on rapidly prototyping your solution, and eventually you get something that's workable. You use it for just one person, then you build a loop for multiple people. Okay, so I don't want to disclose the solution. It's actually not too hard, but you can try it out. Okay, if you can work through this and get this right, I'm absolutely sure you can do the Vostok without any problems. Okay. All right, so I hope you enjoyed the Python course. You know, it's about 3.5 hours of pain, some coding, and you know, some exposure to what you're going to see on Wednesday. On Wednesday, you're going to come back after being refreshed after the nice Buddhist holiday, right? And then you'll be reborn, ready for the next hurdle and challenge. Okay, so I'm going to break there, and then let you take another 20 minutes to complete any exercises you want. I'll just say a couple words for those of you doing Vostok. There are a couple other things that you can try, that you can do to make your life a little bit more comprehensive. Okay, so there are another couple of alternatives to Code Academy. I think last year we had a lot of scaling problems with Code Academy. It's gotten better, but there's Grok Learning. I've just tried this one. This is very nice too. So, look at that. They have an introduction to programming using Python. Surprise, surprise. So you can do part of this without signing up, which is what I did to study it. So if you find some of the things a bit hard that we covered today, no worries. You can take it slower. This is nice because it has some slides as well. But there's been some talk that some of these sites, the feedback and the course material is not that well done. So you may find some errors in what they do. So we still recommend Code Academy as the top place for you to do self-learning of Python. Okay. So this is a little bit different from Code Academy because they actually have some slides and tell you how to break the program down. We know a lot of beginner students, they have a hard time taking a big problem and cutting it into parts. Okay, and then after all of the presentation about what to do, then they come up with this screen. Okay, so you can think of it as having a couple slides and then coming out with an exercise at the end. So that's called Grok Learning. You can try that out as well. Okay. There are a couple other ones. Udemy. These are partially free and mostly paid courses. I'm not trying to do any advertising for them or anything like that, but these come with videos. Okay, so all of the other sites you saw in Code Academy and other things, they're basically text, right? So if you want a video, you're out of luck. So if you want to pay money or try things on your own, like you want to do game development, for example, or you want to, instead of using App Engine, you want to use Django, you know, you can try these tutorials. And some of these actually have, I think all of these have videos connected to them. Okay, I guess I have to register to see the video. But in that way, you can replay it as many times as you like until you get that information. Okay? There are a couple others I've posted here. You can take a look at them when you have some time. Okay? You have a couple minutes and you want to do something while we're waiting for our last presenter. I suggest you take this Python quiz now. Okay? Just for fun. It's one of those things you take, you know, because you're bored. Okay, start the Python quiz. 20 questions. Not so hard. Are you human? I think so. Maybe after a whole day of teaching without coffee, I'm not so human. Okay? But you can try this, see what you get. You know, I'm teaching you this class, but I didn't get perfect. I got 90-something%. Perhaps you'll do better. Okay? So that's all in the last segment here. Okay, so Winston is here. So we'll hand it over to him once I get all set up here. We should close down things here.
I think it's been a long day, so maybe we'll start early. If you know somebody outside, like, can you call them in? Like, people are waiting outside. So I think